So I've been working semi-professionally as an artist for a number of years now. I'm on a journey to become a full-time professional, but it does seem that for every step I take forwards and towards that goal, I'm having to take 2 steps back, or at least it feels like the earth underneath my feet is changing and just getting ahead is just harder than it's ever been. Now the trouble is, AI is here. The AI revolution has come. No longer are we discussing whether or not AI is going to take jobs. It has taken jobs. You know, there's multiple videos out there. Type in AI has taken my job in a Google or YouTube search or something like that. You're going to find multiple people complaining that it's basically game over for them, which is worrying. It's worrying times. You know, what do you do about that when perhaps you trained your whole life to get to where you want to get, and maybe you're in a career already, and now that career is no longer viable, or at least there's so much competition now that making it a viable career is just that much harder. So I just want to talk about my thoughts about AI and how it's going, and how I feel like the journey to become a full-time professional is as hard as it's ever been, but perhaps there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel that I want to talk about at the end as well. So the trouble is, AI has now become mainstream. And what I mean by that is AI art and the products that have AI art on it are being sold in your regular mainstream high street stores, shopping malls, stuff like that. Now, there's a big shop near me, The Range. It sells, as you would guess by the name, a range of products, anything from light fittings to toys, gardening equipment, and of course art and art prints, frames, stuff like that, things for the home, homeware, stuff like that. And I've noticed over the last year or so, there's just more and more art being sold in The Range that is AI made. I mean, for me, it's quite easy to just see, you know, I kind of can tell the difference between AI and not. But I don't think your regular consumer, your regular buyer that just wants a pretty picture to hang on their wall can actually tell the difference. And there doesn't seem to be any backlash. You know, the shop hasn't taken their AI off the shelves. They're continuing to sell it. And I don't even know if them themselves, that as buyers and sellers of the artwork, realize that what they're selling is AI. So you've got a situation perhaps where the buyers don't know it's AI, the distributors don't know it's AI, the sellers don't know it's AI. Everyone's in the dark. And the trouble is, everyone calls AI slop. Oh, you know, this AI slop will never take on. No one likes this AI slop. I'm getting sick and tired of AI slop. You know, people will say these kind of things. The trouble is, it's not really slop, not as in the quality sense. Sure, years ago, it used to look like absolute crap. You know, go back 4 or 5 years ago, and the beginnings of AI image generation weren't pretty, to say the least. However, now we're at a point where it is pretty. In fact, I would imagine that most artwork being generated now is better than most artists' work. Because the thing is, there's a lot of artists out there, but it's only those artists at the very top of the pyramid, you're sort of the 1 to maybe 10%ers who you're going to sort of take note of, the ones that are actually professional and producing really high-end quality of work. So they're quite far and few between. And they can only produce so much work. You know, to create a really good illustration, design or artwork is going to take a lot of time to make it professional, glossy, polished and finished. For prompters, they can create an entire portfolio of good quality art just in a matter of clicks, in a matter of minutes. That's just going to continue exponentially over the coming years. So we're really at a point where good art by actual humans is being drowned out by good art from AI. Now, a lot of people say, well, it's not good art because, you know, occasionally you get the sort of 6 fingers on one hand, or there are these weird little artifacts that, you know, you can kind of tell it's not made by a human. But I don't think you could say that it's bad, because it's just self-evident by the fact that there are shops that are now stocking products containing AI art, and seemingly no one is really kicking up a fuss, or at least that no one really notices, even if it's just the initial sort of the sellers selling the things, they don't notice. So we're at a bit of a weird position now. Now, the occasional art print or canvas print being sold at, you know, hardware stores or homeware stores like The Range, it's like, okay, I'm not too worried about that. But one thing that did worry me recently was the fact that when I went into my local supermarket, my local Tesco's, I noticed some cool packaging. At least at a glance, it caught my eye. Me being a sort of manga style illustrator and artist, I thought, oh, okay, what's all this about? This looks quite colourful, quite bold. It's the sort of thing that I like. It was down the sort of cake section, sort of marketed more at kids, but hey, it caught my eye. And then I had a closer inspection and I was like, wait a minute, this is AI. These free products on the shelves, these fruit bars or gummies or whatever they are AI, using AI illustrations on the packaging, and it's quite self-evident because the prompter who prompted the artwork didn't even, or the artist or the designer of the packaging, they didn't even sort of make any efforts to remove the sort of little weird AI artifacts that just don't make sense, the weird little squiggles and things. I mean, you could argue that the packaging was, yeah, it was good, but it wasn't as good as the cutting edge of image generation products today. It was slightly old school, the fact that it's had all these artifacts and it wasn't quite there. There were these little mistakes and these little blemishes, which for me, the artist, I noticed this kind of thing straight away. But for the layperson, they're probably not going to be able to tell the difference. And there was just something very weird about being in a big major supermarket chain and just seeing an AI product applied to actual packaging. It just made me feel like, well, that's it. This is the start. This is the beginning of the end. It really kind of worried me, and it made me feel a little bit sort of sick, just to feel like, there would have been otherwise an artist like me who could have created something like that, but no, instead this company decided that it would be just cheaper or better or whatever to use AI instead. So yeah, it's kind of worrying times, and as I've said on this channel before, with my own personal income, I've just seen my art print sales take a massive nosedive over the last few years, in correlation with the rise of AI artwork, and it's obviously affecting me and it's affecting loads of other artists out there. And I think a lot of us are just wondering, well, what the hell do we do? Like, what do you do if you're a professional and you're now struggling? Or what if you've been working towards the goal of becoming a professional and now the struggle has just suddenly gotten that much harder? Because the thing with getting really good at art or music or writing or any kind of creative pursuit, there's a lot of people that like that stuff. There's a lot of people that want to do that stuff. There's a high level of competition there anyway, and it's something which you can't just do quickly. You're going to have to put in your 10,000 hours of mastery to get really good at this talent, this skill, this craft that you want to perfect. And I say 10,000 hours, I mean probably way more to get really good to sort of become pro, depending on exactly what you're doing with yourself. So what do you do if you're an aspiring artist? You've got dreams of becoming an artist. You see all this cool artwork. You play video games or watch films, TV, read books with these amazing covers on the front that inspire you and make you feel excited, and you want to be a part of that, which is exactly how I got into art. I just wanted to be a part of the cool stuff that I would engage in as a kid, and I just never grew out of it. I love cool looking artwork and illustrations, and I think I always will. It mesmerizes me, it fascinates me, I love it. But what if you're young and you want to be part of that and you're just thinking, there's no hope for me, that's it. If kids or people like myself, were walking down the street, they walk into shops and stores and check things online, and all the product packaging is slowly transitioning to AI packaging, or websites are now being created by AIs, graphic design is all done by AI. I say all done, but let's just say the majority of it is done. There'll always be the sort of the upper echelons of very talented people that manage to sort of scrape past and not worry about all this AI stuff. What do you do about that? What do you do, even if it's just you have the really high level professional jobs that still need to be done by a human being, but all those low level jobs, all those jobs that would have sustained you in a career as you continue to work up the ladder, up the ranks to get to that high end professional level. If those jobs aren't there to sustain you, how are you going to put in your 10,000 hours, your 20,000 hours? how are you going to have time to do that if you're not getting paid to work on sort of these sort of low or mid-tier art projects? You kind of need that as a professional. To become a professional doesn't mean that you're the best artist ever. It just means you're good enough to produce a result that someone is willing to pay for. But if the results that you produce are just decent, or they're kind of good, but they're not as good as what AI can now produce, which is pretty spectacular in my opinion. Like, what do you do about that? Now, the thing is, AI art is a commodity, it's a product. It's being used as nothing more than a piece of disposable design that gets slapped onto a product and then sold. It doesn't have this kind of human component. And I think when people talk about AI slop, the reason they say slop is it's just a criticism. It's just a negative term that people want to use to show their disdain for the fact that you've basically removed the human component from the creation of this product. It's not necessarily people criticizing the quality, although there's arguments to be made for that to some regard. But yeah, I think there's a lot of people now, and a growing amount of people, that are becoming aware that the AI is just taking away the soul and the human spirit out of the illustration. And when you look at a picture, when you marvel at it and you're in awe of it, how do you feel once you're then told that that picture wasn't actually made by a human and was just replicated based on algorithmic commands and using algorithmic models to replicate something that looks good but that has no real fault or anything put into it, that is just a simulacrum of an actual real piece of human-made content? I think there's going to be a lot of people that aren't happy with that. They just feel saddened by that. They just feel disconnected, or they just feel angry that they're living in a world where the things around them, the things that were bringing them joy or were inspiring them, as soon as you know that it's fake, I think there's a growing amount of people that just can't or don't want to deal with that don't want to accept that aren't happy with that. So the future is going to be an interesting time, I think, when you're going to, maybe in a few years' time, have a lot more discussion whether or not we want AI, even if it can do the job that humans can do far more than humans can do. It's a weird thing, because when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I was a massive sci-fi fan. I mean, I still am. I used to read a lot of sci-fi stories, watch a lot of sci-fi movies, and I always kind of thought this idea of having AIs that could, these, or robots that could basically do everything a human can do but better. I just thought this was amazing. But is it? What happens when the world is just more AI than human, or more AI produce than human produce? Like, what's then the point of humans? What's the point of us having created this thing to begin with, if this thing is ultimately just going to frustrate, stifle, and disappoint us? Yeah, okay, it's a product. We'll get to the point in a few years where we're sitting down to watch a film that's great. It's all AI made. But a few years after that, we're going to sit down and to watch these things and be like, yeah, it is great, but I just can't do it anymore. I can't subscribe to this idea that it's good because it's AI, or just because it looks fancy and it was, maybe there is something good about it, but there's just going to always be this tinge. You're going to feel dirty about it. It's like the difference between, having a real relationship with a human being and just chatting to a chatbot online. Like, deep down, like, the chatbot doesn't care about you. That they can't love you. They can say the words, but unless you're blissfully ignorant and naive or just stupid and retarded, basically, you're going to struggle to connect with it, and it's just not going to feel right. And you're going to feel depressed. You're going to feel anxious. You're going to feel irritated. You're going to feel, as a human being, that you're engaging in a world of products, of things, of just human connections, of everything that just isn't real. And while there's going to be a lot of people that just don't care, that are just happy to ignorantly buy whatever AI slop generated content is out there, there's going to be a growing portion of people that aren't. And I can imagine that a growing portion of those people are going to be able to influence others and stigmatize the whole AI thing. So I do wonder if the next conversation that people start having about AI in years to come will be about the human component more so than the amazement of the products that AI is able to sort of replicate and emulate. So if that happens, perhaps the value of human-made products will actually increase and people will deliberately seek out human-made things. There's, surely going to be a backlash with all this kind of artificial fakeness, lies, and at the end of the day, maybe I'm over optimistic, but I do feel like people would prefer to know the truth and would prefer to know they're basically not being lied to, and that the content that they're consuming is human made, the connections they're making are with actual humans. I mean, we'll see, but I think there might be that just glimmer of hope that eventually there'll be so much pushback from people that want things to be authentic that perhaps there's still a chance for handmade or human-made products to thrive in the future. So anyway, let me know what you think about that. Do you think I'm right, wrong, indifferent? And hopefully I'll see you again in a future video.